Hi, this is our summary video for week 14, and we continue talking about the elimination system. I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. And this week we did a number of things. We started a little bit more detail into the kidneys, and then talked about a few products, the KMB celery seed, and then we switched back to talking about elimination, talking about poop. I'll go through some of that. And then we talked about what happens if the colon gets overloaded and some of the consequences of that. And then we talked about self-massage to help the colon get moving. So let's go over this a little bit. And the kidneys, of course, as we come back to the first video of the week, these are an elimination organ. It's organs that are completely separate from the colon. They're actually separated by an entire connective tissue wall, and they're in the urogenital system. And so they're actually positioned deep in the body, up against the back wall. And they're interesting in that the part of one of the discussion I went through is that the kidneys in particular they move. And it's very important for all the organs to move because they need to get that good circulation, and that movement allows there from shock absorption. So anytime we get impacted, then the movement, if the kidneys are not stuck to the body walls, stuck to the musculoskeletal system, then they actually get a little bit of absorption, that movement absorbs some of that shock. If not, in other words, they get jarred, and we can end up with injuries, even just small disruptions in the functioning of the organs if they're all stuck. Now, how do the organs get stuck? They get stuck because of poor posture, because of inflammation in the system, and so a number of different things. But in kidneys in particular, we talk about the structural restrictions where it can really affect the kidney functions because if we're hunched over and crunched down, or if we're weighted backward like this with the head forward, chest back, there's a lot of different postures that put a lot of pressure in the low back, and that is also another issue that comes up when we talk about peristalsis, and because the colon itself the nerve fibers can get affected by compression of the low back and the sacrum. So we'll talk more about that. But it's so important to get good circulation to the organs, especially the kidneys, because the kidneys are a filter. They have a high throughput filter. They're constantly filtering the blood over and over and over again. And so we really need a lot of good blood flow. So we really do not want to restrict the blood flow to the kidneys. So anything that helps to promote good circulation and posturally is a good thing to help the kidneys. So we do talk about also diaphragm breathing, and using the diaphragm to push down. We do need to protect the kidneys from toxins. So I had a fairly good discussion, pretty long discussion about how many toxins, what are we dealing with toxins and toxins in the world, and metals and heavy metals, mercury and lead and things like that. And these are things that are coming out through the kidneys, and they can really do some damage. So and they have to come out. They are coming out all the time. It's not like you're creating the problem by creating a cleanse. No. Your body is cleansing. Your body's eliminating these things all the time. So the kidneys are having to deal with them. We just need to do what we can to help the kidneys and protect the kidneys from that. And so one of the things that we use to help support and protect the kidneys is the KMB tincture, and it's got an herbal. On that video went over some of the ingredients and the dosage of how to take it, and then talking about some of the concerns about if you're nursing that has parsley in it, and et cetera, et cetera. So you have to go back and watch that whole video. But I go through the KMB tincture as go look at some of the ingredients and things like that. Then in the same line, we're talking about ingredients or talking about product. I talked about celery seed as an essential oil and a product, and how it's a really, really good tool for cleansing and detoxifying. And I did make a difference in that video. We talk a little bit about the difference between a pressed seed, because a lot of people say celery seed. I think it might be like hemp seed or sunflower seed oil. And those oils, those fatty oils, are pressed from the seed, and we use them as a food. And the distilled oil is aromatic and very different small molecules. So the distilled aromatic oils have a very different chemistry and a very different function in the body. So we talked a little bit about how to take the celery seed and using it in water, combine it with your KMB tincture if you're taking that. I actually been doing my 5-day nutritive cleanse, finished it today, and I've been using this celery seed in my water, in my KMB. No, I've been using my celery seed oil in my Ninja Red. Okay, one of those things. And you can also take it in a capsule. I haven't been taking it in a capsule, like I said. I've been just putting it in my Ninja Red. It tastes, pretty bad, but it's not too bad. And then I had a pretty good or lengthy discussion during this in this video for Celery Seed is how do you, when I say, just kind of take it and see how you feel, I have a tendency to say that phrase, take it and see how you feel. And so I have a big discussion about what that phrase means. What does see how you feel mean? And it really requires an honest and accurate read of your body, that you have body awareness is a learnable skill, and hopefully through this whole wellness course, this YO wellness course that you're progressing with, you are developing that skill. That is one of the things that I am building into this entire system, to develop the skill for body awareness. And so that's an important thing to know, because then once you gain that, or as you gain that, it really helps in your whole wellness journey, because then you know what's going on in your body and you can kind of gauge what's going on, and you don't have to worry and freak out so much about every little thing that happens. Okay, so then we talked a little bit about the content of the celery seed oil. It's got limonene and celamine. But the main thing about it, a lot of people have concerns about essential oils and their toxicity. And one of the things that is so very clear in the literature about celery seed oil is extremely non-toxic, safe for pregnancy, safe for nursing, safe for it's just there's not a toxicity, very, very low toxicity in rats. And so it's something that you can use with a degree of confidence. Now, we switch gears as we go into the next video and talk about poop, and maybe not your favorite topic, and it's not necessarily my favorite topic, but it is something that I use to monitor the progress or status of my body as it's doing cleanses or elimination processes. I use the status of my poop to kind of give me a gauge of what's going on. So I talk about how we look at that, what kind of things I look at. I'm not a poop expert. There's a lot of people who might have a lot better information than I do, but this is just something that I've learned to use as a monitor or gauge as I go through the process. And talk about frequency, really should be pooping 3 times a day. I know that sounds absurd, like, oh wow, I couldn't even imagine pooping 3 times a day. When I first heard that, I wasn't pooping about every 3rd day. And I was massively, majorly constipated. Now I'm more like, twice a day, 3 times a day. So there are several reasons why you wouldn't be pooping, or why the constipation. You can have a sluggish bowel. There's a lot of reasons to have a sluggish bowel. You're not drinking enough water. The structure of the bowel is compromised. The flora isn't imbalanced. The liver's not doing its job to produce bile. Or there's blockages or spasms. These are some of the things that we talked about. But what does it look like to have a perfect poop, right? I mean, so not only, so if we want to start looking at what happens or the poop, the changes, well, we have to change from a hopefully ideal. So what does a perfect poop look like? And then we go into talk about how the effects of cleansing can change the poop. So then you look at it and say, okay, well, it changes consistency. Sometimes it can get harder or softer. It can be, you can get to total lockdown, like total constipation. Of course, there might be a circumstance for that where you would have to actually stop doing a cleanse. If you're an active cleanse and you lock up, then, and that has happened to me before, just might have to quit the cleanse. Talk about color of the poop. If it's really dark, that might be an indication of blood somewhere in the digestive tube. If it's really pale, and it's kind of an indication of a weak liver. And then we have greasy or oily poop that indicates, again, a weak liver where it's not producing the proper bile. There's potentially a burning sensation associated with the poop, and that's what we call toxic. We consider that to be toxins coming out. And then we have that toxic poop where you really have almost a physiological change as soon as that poop leaves the body. And so those are kind of just the things that we have noticed or have just kind of kept in mind as we do these cleanses and do things as we monitoring our body. These are not necessarily things that would be causes for us to change our actions, except just to make a note of it, keep track of it, and just know that these are not completely bizarre things, and that they just give you confidence that you can continue on with the cleanse. Obviously, if things persist and if you need to see a doctor, fine. We talked about watery poop with mucus and what that means, and then stinky poop with smell, and that's usually weak digestion or poor digestion of food. So that was kind of that overview of the poop discussion. Then we switched over to colon overload. What happens when the colon doesn't do its job? I mean, so not only what's the consequence of that? In other words, if the colon's done. So there's a couple of reasons why we would get colon overload, and that is when toxins our mobilized toxins end up in the reabsorbed and get in the bloodstream. And it could be because we have just plain too many toxins coming out, the liver's just dumping too many at one time for the liver to handle it, or the colon might not be moving well enough. So this is back to this movement issue. We need to make sure things move, or that there are too many pockets, little pooches, and diverticuli that trap the toxins or trap the poop, and it's not moving through, and then the toxins get reabsorbed. So the body is always cleansing. We talk about this. This is a fairly good discussion on that part. The elimination part of the tube is to eliminate food waste, but then hopefully what happens is you've got enough fiber, and this is how important fiber is in your diet. You have enough fiber to trap and carry the toxins out and those metabolic wastes out that are dumped from the liver. So I gave a discussion of the phase 1 and phase 2 cleansing and phase 2 detoxification, and this idea of cleansing versus storage. The body is either in a cleansing mode or storage mode. And most people in our toxic world are in a storage mode, so they don't recognize and don't realize that their body is receiving toxins or exposed to toxins, and that's a very dangerous place to be in, because you just keep absorbing more and more and more toxins, and the body is not getting rid of them. When you start doing a program like this, and this is why I've designed this program to be this very gentle, progressive way to come about this, that you start out eliminating, like the first thing was the fragrances, toxic fragrances, synthetic fragrances. And if you've done that by now, you already know, you've probably already had the reaction that you start to be able to not be able to tolerate those toxic fragrances. You've got them out of your house, out of your life, but you go over to your mom's house or your sister's house or brother's house or whatever, and you smell their towels, and it's got full of laundry soap and the fragrances and fabric softener, and you can feel that it just gives you a headache and it irritates your system. That's great. That means you've switched over into a cleansing mode. That does not mean that you've become sensitive to that. You're not allergic to those fragrances. It means your body is now recognizing the honest truth of it, and it's saying, well, I don't want that. So being in a cleansing mode is very important. You want to stay in a cleansing mode at all times. You'd never want to get to that storage mode, but there's a lot, and I have a discussion of what happens when you do that. So these mobilized toxins in the bloodstream, they can come out in the skin, create rashes. Had a fairly thorough discussion about that. And then, of course, these toxins come out through the sweat. I talked about the fat-soluble toxins coming out through the oil and grease and the hair and in the skin. And then the vapor toxins can come out through the lungs. So the skin and the lungs are the secondary detox mechanisms if the colon gets overloaded. So one of the things that we can do to prevent the colon from getting overloaded is make sure that it's moving, and that's where the last video we did a self-massage with peristalsis to help to encourage the peristalsis, and that's the contraction of the tube. And so we really have got to have that peristalsis. It must be there to push the toxins, push the waste material out through the digestive system. It will not just fall out on its own. So we have this postural problem that crunches down the tube. We have the inactive tube that could be coming from compressed nerves. We also have weakened connective tissue. And so all of this is the reasons why we need to keep the colon toned and clean. And the Comfort Tone capsules can help with that. But also we have this massage that we can do. And we can enhance that massage with the essential oil blend that we know of as AromaEase. I also mentioned a little bit about release oil and digest. But this self-massage, and I go through that, I'm not going to show it to you here, but it's, I go from the right side, the appendix, starting down there, come up, go across, come back down, and we lift and support and feel that relax and do a little massage while we're lifting up the organ. So I lift up the colon, and then I wobble a little bit, and then come up to the next part, lift it up and wobble a little bit, and I can start to get the colon to move and start opening that up. You may need, of course, if your colon is totally locked down, you might need to get professional help and go get some craniosacral therapy to make sure their nerves are working out of your sacrum, that they're giving the right signals to the colon. So there's a lot of things that you can do both for yourself and this kind of self-massage, but then you can go seek out some help, some professional help in visceral and craniosacral therapy and postural work. You can get postural work. I do the Aston pounding work, but there's and if that's available to you, or some other kind of system like that. Okay, so that's really a ripping through the week in review here. I know it's a lot, but if any of those videos catch your attention, go back and watch those or watch them all, and we'll just keep doing this one day, 1 week, 1 month at a time. The idea here is the end of the year will be more well than we started, and I'm already there. I'm already, for me, this has been fabulous. So I thank you for the opportunity to share this with you, and thanks for watching. again, happy wellness, one day at a time, one week at a time. We'll see you next week. Happy Easter as well.